Hello and welcome to Ideas with Impact podcast. Today I'm sitting down with Nora Benian, a yoga therapist and a healer who works in a very gentle, integrated way. She's helping people to slow down, listen to their body, and meet themselves with more love and compassion. Welcome, Nora.
Thank you so much, Aleksandra.
Thank you. Welcome back to Canada.
Yay, yay. It's good to be on the home turf, though. Yeah.
Yes. Nora, could you tell me a little bit about yourself and how did you got into the space of, actually, how did you become interested in yoga?
Yeah, so it's a fairly long story, and I'll try to keep it short, but keep the important parts in there. First, I was a competitive gymnast in my youth, so moving my body was not a new thing to me. I was born to move it, so it was a natural thing for me to, once I basically finished my career in gymnastics. Even while I was coaching, I still needed something for my body. And I fell into yoga, which was at first seemed very boring to me compared to gymnastics. But I started to recognize the value of moving more consciously and slowly and mindfully. Not that I wasn't doing that in a fast pace before, but slowing down meant there was more to notice. And so my body needed some recovery. There's a lot of injury that happens in competitive, any kind of competitive sport. And so that was my first introduction to it. And it actually became a necessity for me after I gave birth to my daughter. Because during that experience of giving birth, I had an epidural injury, which I wouldn't say paralyzed my legs, but definitely kept them from acting the way they did before. So there was delayed movement, there was pain, there was a lot of tension around the area where the needle was injected. And it took me about 8 years to really recover the full strength of my legs again after that injury. And I
Wow.
did not know what it was going to take. I had fear of having to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life because of the intense discomfort that I was having just by doing daily chores, like standing in the kitchen washing dishes or cooking something. So it took a long time, but what I learned to do in the process was relax, was to lay down for a period of time without moving and without even thinking about moving. Because even if the mind wants to do something and the body's not, the nervous system is still not relaxing completely. There's this misalignment of will and acceptance. Like I had a hard time accepting the fact that I needed to rest for this long in order to get up and do 10 minutes of chores comfortably before the pain set in again. So it was a process of aligning with my life circumstances. Like, this happened, now I have to deal with it. I'm not going to have the energy that I had before, at least right now. But what can I do? And what I could do was accept and let go and stay still. And in learning to stay still, I recovered a lot of the life force. Life force comes in when you're open and healthy, but when you have tension, when you have pain, there's a difficulty of that life force to flow through those areas. And so I was learning to let go through the pain to allow more life force to come through. This was really my first introduction to what yoga could do. And I'm not talking about the physical postures even. I'm talking about the mental and energetic aspects of yoga. So after, like I said, 8 years of learning to relax deeply, my first introduction to yoga was therapeutic. It was not power or flow of course, I knew that existed. My body wasn't going to be able to do it at this time. But I actually started to recognize the value of it even after I was more healed. And I saw that the amount of stress that people were dealing with on a regular basis were putting their body in constant fight or flight and freeze and fawn reaction, into the sympathetic nervous system reaction. And we needed something other than medication, other than wine, to bring us back down into the parasympathetic, which is where we rest and heal and digest. So it became actually a mission for me to share what I had learned in the process. And I had done several different teacher trainings. I started with one in Guelph, Ontario, with Rita Cupid, who introduced me to therapeutic yoga, which is a more gentle, slow, gradually opening joints, gradually increasing strength, and moving at a pace that did not disturb the nervous system, did not excite it. It was just slow, gentle. And, coming from my background, yeah, it was unstimulating, definitely. But that was the point. And I grew to accept that and embrace it, actually, and enjoy it, because I always felt better afterwards. So there must be something to this practice. And so I had to undo some of my old ways of moving. I moved very fast before, now I had to move slowly. And this preserved my energy. It gave me more energy throughout the day, knowing how to do this. And so then I began to attract people who also had pain, also had stress, also had other conditions that they didn't know how to manage. And I quickly learned that I should actually become a yoga therapist. And so I continued my studies with various teachers. Some are still alive, some are not. And gathered as many as 60 different cases that I could work with to be able to document it and see, okay, well, these things work for this condition and these things work better for that condition. And so I had a nice repertoire built up, and it just kept growing from there. And it's been 20 years now since the beginning of that journey. Actually, 25 since my daughter was born, but, in taking it seriously and studying it and becoming more capable of offering people a different type of practice to enhance their health and also heal. And since then, I've studied quite a few other healing modalities as well, which, if you want, I can also talk about.
Absolutely. Please do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is a space where we want to create, or I want to create, for people to share their experiences and their knowledge. So I would love to absolutely hear it.
Sure. So before we dive into that, the one thing I learned was before anyone can really move forward in a healing process, they need to actually learn how to rest deeply while in an awake state. So restorative yoga became like the first step. And it would be something that people would do, maybe for a few months before they start moving into something else. Or if they're still fairly capable of functioning physically and not dealing with too much stress, then they could incorporate it once a week alongside their other practices. So first would be the resting deeply and managing the nervous system. And then the next step would be stretching the body. So yin yoga became a very important piece to the whole thing, where if you've been still for a while, which is good for the nervous system, then the fascia, the connective tissue, hasn't been moved very much, and it becomes kind of stuck, a little stagnant. So then we need to go into long hold stretches in order to change the structure of the fascia so that there could be more mobility in the joints, and then also more energy flow through the body. So we're talking about the life force, the prana. And so once that stage is done, so that could mean a few months of practice. After a few months of practice of restorative, then came the therapeutic, where we were developing small muscles again, greasing the joints, becoming more able to undulate and rotate in the joints, especially the spine. so that there could be gradual increase of strengthening in the muscles that support the joints, but also just getting the body more prepared to take on more body weight. So those are the 3 stages of healing in the yoga process that I have encountered and noticed. And then people can take on a full-on yoga practice. From time to time, they may need to revisit the other ones as well. And actually, I highly recommend everyone does a restorative class once a week, a yin class once a week, and at least one active class once a week. And if they want to do more active classes, make sure they're balancing it out with the other 2 as well. But through all of this, I started to understand more about brain waves. So right now we're in beta, where we're talking and listening and interacting, and that's like a higher we call it a hertz, cycles per second, so many cycles per second. And we're in the highest at this point, except for gamma. Gamma's way up there. And most people don't reach gamma unless they're like serious meditators of like 6 hours a day or something like that. And then after beta, we move into a state called alpha, where you're finished your task, you sit down, you might have a tea, or you might just kind of zone out for a minute and just take a breath. That would be entering alpha. And that's great for learning how to move into a meditative state. But after alpha is even more settled, we move into the theta brainwave, which is 8 to 4 hertz per second. And this is where the healing happens. This is where we dive into a deeper state where we're not externally focused at all. And we're not even internally focused in the sense that we have a subject in our mind. We might in alpha, but not in theta. And this is where there's this level of peace and openness and relaxation in the body. If you ever heard of yoga nidra, which is the state of deep yogic sleep, the idea is to move into this it's like the subconscious. You're moving into the subconscious. And this is where a lot of the healing is needed, because we operate automatically because of what's in the subconscious mind. And we often repeat patterns of behavior, patterns of reacting, our likes and dislikes, our ideas of what is right and what is not right is still stuck in the subconscious. It's something we were subjected to when we were growing up. And also our schooling and our culture and even our religion will have set things here for us to build from. But sometimes things change. Sometimes we grow out of the ideas of what once was, and we want to be able to evolve. And so when we enter the theta brainwave, we have a chance to actually examine those things. We don't consciously do it. We don't go, there's something in there. It's not like that at all. It's almost like an undoing, a natural undoing. And this is where our reactions, our responses have an opportunity to shift, become more awakened, or we can act in a more awakened way when we allow those old habits and patterns to shift. So theta healing was the next thing that I really needed to learn about. I mean, I needed to understand what it took to get into the theta brainwave. I needed to know what we can do in the theta brainwave. And what we can do is quite a bit. We can download new information. So let's say you've never really understood what it felt like to be unconditionally loved. And I'm sure there's quite a few people out there who feel that their love was conditional and they don't know what it is to be unconditionally loved. So in a theta healing session, we would ask for the download of what is it to be, what is that feeling? How does it feel to be unconditionally loved? And then we would allow it to come in and allow it to fill the cells and allow it to take hold and believe that we actually know what it feels like to be unconditionally loved. And from there, we can move forward with this newfound knowledge, newfound experience in the body. And there's many more things we can do this with. We can undo a lot of things, and we can add a lot of things. We can cancel belief systems that have been existing for a long time. So theta healing is one of the main ones that I work with now. But of course, Reiki was a very important one too, because people needed relief from physical pain immediately. And most people know what Reiki is, but it's the energy transfer, divine energy transfer into the body. And still, a lot can happen on the energetic level as well. And then, of course, there's other practices like homeopathy. I studied homeopathy before even yoga, but I was a little bit, I would say, a little young, a little immature to be able to totally embrace it at that time. But still, the idea that similar cures similar, like we attract people that mirror us,
Yes.
right? And it's for us to go, oh, look at that. There I am right in front of me. I'm observing this behavior. And that means I'm observing myself. So even without the homeopathic medicine, the concept is still there of the idea of similar cure similar. So once you're awakened to something that lives within you that you did not know lived within you, you can't undo the fact that you just saw it. So you're going to shift. You're going to go, oh, well, I really don't want to be that way. I don't want to come across that way. I don't want to treat people that way. And so there's this internal work that happens that is, you can't even put words to it. It's just sort of a shift of awareness, of consciousness. And so, yeah, every experience brings us to a greater awareness. There's no doubt about it. It's just, what are we focusing on? Are we focusing on everything on the outside of us, or are we focusing on things inside of us? And of course, it's easier to focus on the things outside of us. For one, they don't look like they have anything to do with us. It's you, it's them, it's the environment, it's the circumstance, it's the population, it's the society. When you focus inward, there's no one else but you. And so the biggest shifts and healing processes happen when we're able to do that. And that takes time. And yoga leads us to being able to turn inward without fear of what we're going to find or see. Because we all have imperfections. We all have things we're not very proud of that we've done, But to be able to actually pay attention to it and lay your eyes on it allows you to dissect it and pull it apart a little bit so that you can see you didn't know better yet. You didn't understand that this lived inside you, but now you do. And now you have a choice. It's not automatic anymore. You're not being driven by the subconscious. Now you can go, oh, I'm changing that belief. I'm changing that behavior. And so all of the things that I've just talked about really lead us to being able to get to know ourselves on a deeper level.
It's like coming home to our body.
And not just our body, our soul. Because our soul chooses every experience we have. We may not recognize that, and we may not even believe it. We'll go, no way. There's no way I would have ever wanted to experience the abuse of a partner or whatever, right? But the truth is that your soul will always call forth the experiences that you need to grow from. And if you have the opportunity to turn inward and really get in touch with that, you can see that these are things that you were unable to process. Maybe you were exposed to it, but you were too young to process. You were too young to make sense of. You had to, or maybe you could, but you didn't have the time. Maybe you had young children and you couldn't break down right now and work on this. You needed to do what needed to be done for the family. But when we actually take time to turn inward, it's like cleaning the house.
Mm.
Do a deep cleaning once or twice a year. You know, you pick up the carpet, you sweep under the carpet, you pull the fridge out, you clean behind the fridge. These things build up within us because we don't always have time to process and learn from and remove if we want to remove it. So I think a regular practice gives you the opportunity to do small, deep cleans on a regular basis. Nothing that takes up too much energy, nothing that takes up too much time, but it's like a constant practice of making yourself more whole, more pure, more connected to source and self. And these are the people that are more balanced, they're more grounded, they're more comfortable in their own skin, they're more confident. No matter, even if there's something that comes their way that they've never done before, they just naturally trust themselves to be able to move through it without too much difficulty because they know themselves. And
Yeah, you know what I also find is that clutter also disable people from moving forward,
yeah,
right?
definitely.
So get rid of the things, including your clothes that you, let's say, haven't worn I don't know, if you have not worn those clothes anywhere between 6 to 8 months, get rid of it. Clean out the closet. Like you said, pull that fridge out, clean those dust bunnies
Mhm.
to get inside because it creates that space for you to really have more, not energy, have more space for yourself to really pay attention to yourself.
Yeah, it invites the new. People also, we're talking about things right now, but actually we're hanging on to old pains, old resentments, old feelings of guilt and lack, and uh, we've defined ourselves around these experiences, and we're carrying them with us into the new, which is making the new hardly noticeable. Like we're not even able to really see what's coming in for us for new because there's all this baggage we're taking with us.
Yeah.
So if we could let go of old, so we're talking about the ego now, right? The ego likes to hang on to identities of oneself at a time, let's say, oh, you remember we hear about people talking about, oh, those were the years, you know, oh, in high school, or I was a this or I was a that. And but really what you're doing is limiting what you could be right now because you're not supposed to be the best you were then. You're supposed to be the best you are now. And again in the future even better. And again in the future even better. And so if we keep hanging on to old ideas of who we are, we don't even give ourselves a chance to become the new version of ourselves.
So why do people get stuck in the past or living in the future instead of living in the present moment?
Yeah, well, for one, the present moment is not always very exciting. And maybe they don't like what's happening in the present moment. Maybe they're like, this is a time of, and especially right now, after COVID, we've got all these political things going on in the world. So much war still exists. We've got a lot of pain. People are actually having a hard time accepting the fact that we're still living in times where people are in great pain. And as a collective, we feel that. But even still, on a personal level, things don't happen very fast from moment to moment. It takes time for change to happen. And so sometimes being in the present moment is like, oh, this is just painful. It's boring. It's dull. I don't see anything happening. And we're addicted to stimulation, remember? Television,
I mean, yes.
social media, the whole thing. So we were expecting instant results constantly and not remembering that actually everything takes some time to transform and change. But living in the past is also, people live in the past because lots of reasons, but one of them is unresolved issues, events that happened that they didn't fully accept, they didn't embrace, they didn't want, they maybe an experience they didn't thrive in. Maybe they lost their job and they're still stuck on why that happened, or maybe their spouse left them, or whatever the reason is, there's processing that has to happen.
Right.
And that's why we have therapy. That's why we go to psychotherapists, right? We work on understanding where we've come from so that we can not make the same, well, I don't want to call them mistakes. We don't want to repeat the same patterns that caused certain results. We want to understand them so that we know what to do the next time we're facing a similar situation or another challenge. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to perfect it in one step. Therapy means there's a practice involved. It's like, just like anything to heal, it takes time, right? So sometimes going back in the past is not always a bad thing because there's much to uncover and resolve. Sometimes people go into the past because they're stuck on a certain idea of who they were. I was a CEO, now I'm not, now I'm retired, and their mind is still about what happened then and who they were then and not accepting where they're at this time. But that's not as much work, but it's definitely robbing you of any experience you could be having in the present moment. And in the future, people live in the future because they're really unsatisfied with the now. Now, you do have to go into the future for some planning. You have to like foresee the next 10, 20 years of your life so that you can say, okay, I'm going to put this much away so I can have this much at this age of my life, or you can kind of project business plans and things like that. But Eckhart Tolle says we should only spend 10% of our time in the past and in the future, and 80% of the time in the present. And he might even have said 5 and 5 and 90, but I'm remembering it as 10 and 10 and 80. But if you're 80% of the time present, you're not going to miss very much. You're going to catch all the tiny little messages that are coming in that fill the gaps of your understanding so that you don't have to ignorantly step forward, but you can step forward with some insight and some intuitive nudges, and being present means you don't miss those small little moments of your child growing up, or you catch little tiny emotions that come up that you're not suppressing or pushing away. You're recognizing, hey, I really didn't appreciate that, or maybe I need to set a boundary here because of the way that made me feel. But if you're too busy in the past or the future, you ignore all of that because you can't have your energy in past, present, and future all at the same time. It's just not possible.
Point, because we do have the choice and we can make these choices, right?
Yeah.
Be conscious about these choices. Like, do you really want to go and relive because I know a lot of people say, and I come across a few people that be like, oh, I wish if I went back to the 90s and I would change this and this and that, right? And it's like, why? Why would you do this? It's like making these choices. It's so important, and be present in that moment. And I know pain is huge for a lot of people because we don't want to open that Pandora box and we don't want to look in there. It's so easy just to mask it and forget about it and move on to the next. Like you said, those commercials, that TV, that fast way of, fast food and that dopamine increase for your life.
Yeah. It's unfortunate though, because you know what happens when we don't resolve and deal with those really deep wounds and pains that we're carrying around from the past is that everything we do is filtered through that. So all your relationships will have a flavor of that pain in it. All your interactions, even with work, you're not as, I want to say the word pure, but I don't mean in the sense that we understand pure as a person, but you have too many taints. There's too many things that you have to filter through before you can get anything out. And it's not as pure as it could be, as if that was cleansed out. If you had resolved it, if you had examined it, healed it, resolved it, what comes through you now, and artists would understand this, their music or art or dance has a flavor of emotion that comes, it's going through. Their energy is moving through that. But the more evolved we become, meaning the more we've healed from our past injuries and pains, the clearer, the more potent, the more expressive, the more creative we can be. And the greats all have had to go through these deep hurts and pains. If you go through anybody's biography or autobiography of a successful or famous person who's made it through, you'll see that they've had this something or other that was hard, really hard to work through, and they worked through it and they came out the other side. But if you block yourself before working through it, you'll never know what you're capable of, really. You'll always be housing this thing, this ball and chain, really.
Right.
It's and then we've got medication to help people with the depression and with the anxiety, but those are signs that there's something within you that really need addressing. Now, of course, there are people with chemical imbalances that have nothing, maybe has something to do with past pains, but maybe not. And those, I'm not saying those should not be treated medically and all of that, but I am saying all those things that we're dealing with today, I can't tell you anyone who doesn't have depression at least once in their life for a period of time. Depression is kind of normal for short periods. We're supposed to experience the lows. We're supposed to experience the highs. But we can't live in any one of those for a length of time, too long of a time, because then we become chemically imbalanced.
Right. We're creating a disease.
Yeah. And then we live in a delusion too. I mean, we don't see life as it really is. We see it through the lens or the filter of that experience. And then
emotions, do emotions mostly live in the body?
Well, emotions move through the body for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are people, okay, this is my understanding of emotions, and I'm sure there's experts out there who could maybe elaborate on this or even give a totally different perspective. But our thoughts, the way we think about something, produces an emotion. So I'm drinking tea right now. My tea's getting cold. I like warm. I like my tea hot. Okay. So I could say, oh, it's cold now. And that produces this disappointment kind of feeling inside of me. Or I could say, yeah, that's fine. I can drink it cold right now. I'm going to have a hot tea later. I'm not going to be emotionally affected by the fact that it's just a small thing. Okay. Let's say you didn't get the job you wanted. You're going to fall into a low, and you're going to live in this low for a while. Yep. And the thoughts that you have about it, like, was I not good enough? What do I have to do to get better? These are the positive side, the positive ones, right? But there's all these, insecurities start to come up, and the thoughts that you have create feelings, and those feelings are the emotions that move through you energetically. So you could have a thought that makes you feel high on life, and you can have a thought that makes you feel very low about life. And every time you have a thought, you create not just the vibration, not just the emotion, but the vibration of the emotion, which then settles into your cells.
You're creating your own reality.
But now your body is actually housing these negative vibrations, these low vibrations. We won't call them negative, we'll call them low. Look, there's a scale of emotional frequency. Have you seen it before? It's like many colors. At the bottom is like guilt and shame and anger. Mm-hmm. And the top is joy and bliss and peace. And we've got all these ones in the middle, and each one has its own vibration, its own frequency. And we absorb that. We become those frequencies. And you start to move through life with a certain frequency, which attracts other things that carry that frequency. Because you can't possibly attract a thing of a much higher frequency if you're not
In a low
vibing that.
vibration, right?
So, yeah, your body absorbs it, it becomes it until you move the body, until you stretch it, until you change it, until the new cells are made. When you have new thoughts, my thoughts during a certain period of time were of a certain vibration. And so my whole body became like that, and I behaved like that. But then something happened. It was a shift. I healed. I let go of something. I made a step forward, whatever the thing may be. And all of a sudden, my thoughts are of another new vibration. And gradually, my body will start to pick up that vibration. It's not instant. Some parts are instant, but the whole changeover takes time. But then I start to attract things of a higher frequency, more joyful things, more successful experiences. So yes, definitely. And you are the one in control of those emotions, because how you think of everything is what puts those emotions and vibrations of the emotions in you. So let's say I didn't get the job I wanted. And it's true, actually. I went for this interview down in West Palm Beach. It was like perfect. It was perfect opportunity for me to do what I do. I wanted to live in Florida, all of these things. And and then it didn't happen because of circumstances. And regardless of what the actual reason was, because I don't know what it was, I had to quickly recognize, hey, this is getting me down. And that's not going to help me attract something else. I need to view this as maybe a divine intervention. Maybe this was a good thing that I didn't get this job. How do I know how long that would have lasted? I would have made a big move and then maybe it didn't, you know what I mean? So I needed to mentally reprogram the way I felt about the experience to adjust the way I was going to vibrate so that I could carry up higher. So I didn't dip down low. I stayed as neutral as possible so that I could at least bounce off of neutral to go up. But this takes time and awareness. And we have
And
a lot of
attachments. Attachments are the biggest part, I think, for us humans, that we like to cling on without even realizing. And then that's what hurts us at the end.
Yes, so we cling on to ideas of what our lives should be like, what we want them to be like. We cling to people, we cling to possessions, we cling to status, and we cling to our money, we cling to ideas in general. And there's a need for us to be able to do that, to manifest something. It's almost like attaching our minds to a single focus. And if we can stay there long enough, we can grow something from it. But if it's not aligned with your truth, and if itself is changing on its own, because we can't make people the way we want them. They are what they are, and they're going to do what they do. But if we're clinging to an aspect of them that we once loved or, valued in a person, and now they're all of a sudden different, we then have a hard time with this because it's not what we wanted. And so really what it is it's a kind of security. And this happens more and more as we get older too. It's hard to keep adjusting and adapting because it takes energy to do that. You have to have an open mind. You have to be comfortable enough to go, okay, I guess that didn't work out. I'm going to do something else now. I'm shifting gears again. But as we get older, that becomes harder and harder. So people cling on to ideas of people, of how they were. Sometimes when you go back home after a long time being away, everyone sees you the way you used to be, but you've grown since then. And they're attached to the you used to be. And all of a sudden they're seeing something else in you and they're like, oh, wait a minute. That's not right. That's not how you are. That's not you. Stop pretending to be somebody else, but you've already evolved and they're still stuck on this one idea of who you are. And So attachments are like security blankets, really. It just makes people
Yeah.
feel comfortable and at home and familiar.
We're immigrants to this country, and we left Poland in 1988, something like that, right before the wall collapsed in Germany.
Uh-huh.
And you know, I find that my parents are stuck in the 1980s. They haven't really evolved, they haven't really changed, they haven't really, I mean, they have in a way, but I find them that they're so stuck in that old mentality.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I understand these patterns.
Yeah. There's a lot of
Yeah.
emotion wrapped up in that kind of
Well, it
experience.
is.
My parents immigrated too. They immigrated in 68 and I was born in 69. So, and they were young enough to make some major adaptations, but there's still guilt from leaving the family members behind.
Yes.
Guilt for not having enough to offer the children as they're growing up because it's not easy coming to a new country and starting all over again,
Right.
and then making friends is difficult sometimes. It depends. Some people are brought right into a community, but and then you're wearing all of this emotional baggage that they have. That's
Yeah.
how you grow up with that. And so you don't want to look like you're having a good time here in Canada when your parents are still kind of aching for their old country. And they came for good reasons, of course, but still it's not all, not their entire being was ready and willing to come.
Yeah.
Right? There was reasons why they left. And we have a lot of immigrants that have come through, a lot of refugees doing the same thing,
Yeah.
struggling with this internal battle of, trying to hold on to what they know and believe in is for them to, embrace and like their old culture and stuff. But then but also having to integrate and also
Yeah.
having to learn a new language and provide. And I mean, it's hard.
It is.
Immigration from a same language speaking countries, not as hard, but totally different language and different
Yeah.
culture, completely very hard. And the children are are not just culturally and historically affected, they are in their DNA, they're affected as well.
Right.
And so back to the theta healing, that's one level we work on. We work on the beliefs of the old ancestors and the cultures and the history of where they grew up or where their family grew up. And we also work on a DNA level. We're carrying things that are not ours, right? So, and then you have to relate to them. Like you're adapting and growing, and then your family is not so much, and then you
Right.
still need to go back and relate to them and then relate to the new,
Yeah.
and so it's like double duty. It's very challenging. It's
It is. Because what I find is that pull back and forth,
yeah,
right? So what I've learned through my process is just
yeah,
having that
definitely.
compassion and understanding, and yeah, just I also had to learn through this process about forgiveness. I think that's a
Hmm.
huge one too.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, where people usually, like we said earlier, holding on to these grudges, holding to the angers, whatever it's holding them from the past. It's just you have to forgive yourself before you're forgiving anybody else. If you don't forgive
Absolutely.
yourself, then you're
Yeah.
stuck in
And
that negative vibration.
right, exactly, exactly. And remembering that you are just a soul in a body learning how to live a human life, you know.
Right,
And
right.
we tend to reprimand, oh, they're a certain age, they should know better by now, kind of thing. We do this, but it's like, no, no. there'll be a time when that soul understands and learns that lesson. It just hasn't happened yet. And why are
Yeah.
we making people feel bad for not having learned it already? It's like, why is there this idea of it's supposed to happen a certain way?
Yeah.
It's not. Everybody's going through life the way they need to go through life, and they're learning the lessons they need to learn. And the yogis believe that we've been around many times and we will still be around many times until we have fully learned all our lessons. And then, so, some people have some lessons that need to be learned kind of late in life. We talk about midlife crisis. What
Yeah.
midlife crisis really is living out stuff you didn't get to finish living out in your youth.
Yes.
And what that means is not just the joyful things like buying the fancy car or the sports car. It's more about actually having the lesson learned from that kind of an experience that may have been suppressed because by 20 you were supposed to be looking at getting married back
Yes.
then. But nowadays
Yeah.
it's like, what, 20 married? No way, that's too young. Why? Because there's so much growing that happens in the first 30 years of a person's life. It's unbelievable. And if you skip some of those lessons, you could be sure you're going to have them come up somewhere later in life. And then you're going to look like you know, like you're off your rocker because now you're having this life experience. You've run away with your secretary or whatever it is that they do. I mean, we just have these preconceived notions of what life is supposed to flow like. And it causes people a lot of grief because they're not actually living out what they truly feel like they need to be living. And then they get attached to what's normal, what society's expectations are. It's not even all the old pains, that's there too. But then we've got, well, who am I supposed to be? I'm this
Right.
age. I should already have a home. I should already have a family. I should already have kids. You know,
It's the
um,
pressures. It's the
the pressure
pressures from your families, from your friends, and everything. Yes, I totally
is
understand.
so unneeded. It's unnecessary. It's like impeding the natural progression of a soul's development.
Right. Yes, and if you don't, then you become the black sheep.
And yeah, and then you have to fight everybody and always
Right.
explain yourself and maybe feel uncomfortable in their company, which is why families break apart because
Right.
you're not welcome, you're not accepted because you're different. But how are you supposed to grow? So, there's a lot of challenges growing, especially for people who are not of the culture that they are now in.
Mhm.
But overall, I think each generation, their job is to help their parents evolve further.
Right.
And regardless of where they are, the knowledge that they gain I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but it almost feels like to me, our kids are born with all the things that we've had to learn. And they start off with that knowledge and they learn a whole bunch of new things, which we're like, whoa, I don't know what that is. You go ahead, honey. I don't bother explaining it to me because it's too much.
But, but Nora, we are, I think perhaps I'm just assuming, we are much, much more open to the idea for our kids to evolve in a different way than we did.
Yes, that is true.
That's how I feel. I also find that people these days, I mean, I think personally that there's a huge shift happening in the world right now. And these kids, when I look at my own children, um, they're so different. I mean, my husband and I, we had a little chat last night, and we're like, when we were in our early 20s, he said, I felt like, because my daughter is becoming 19, she's going to be 19.
Okay.
And I said to him, I'm like, what did you do when you were 19? He goes, you know what? I wasted my life away at 19. Now, that was not in a negative way. Again, it's not, oh, I wish I would go back and change it. But he's
Mhm.
like, I am so proud of of our kids, where they are today. So it's a completely different they have completely different perspective. They have a completely different way of living than we did in our
Yes.
20s. Let's just say.
They also have a different mission.
Yes. Yes.
You're a little younger than me, but my generation's mission was to enjoy life. Honestly, it was just enjoy, just enjoy. It wasn't about. It was. We didn't have fear of not making enough money back then.
Right.
We were thriving at that time, and it was about play. It was about creativity. It was about exploring and experiencing. It wasn't about digging your heels in and strapping yourself in and digging deep into some kind of a deep study, because it was about expansion. But I think I'm looking at my daughter who's 25 right now, watching her grow up and seeing where she's at her age right now. She actually is at the same kind of in the same place I was at 25, but the way she got there was very different than the way that I got there. And I think that they understand that we don't have time for fun right now. I think there's so much work to be done to bring balance back into the way society is living, that they're just trying to get right down to business. I think they're taking life a lot more seriously than certainly my generation, the people I know in my life did. And we had a lighthearted approach. Her and her age group and her friends do not. They see, actually, a lot of them are suffering from depression because everything seems so heavy. Everything seems so dire, so critical, so things are falling apart, and it's up to this generation to build something new. It's time for these kids to take life a little bit more. They have to stay on track to if they're going to fulfill their mission, that is.
I find that they have grown up faster than when we had.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
because I can always say that my daughter, and maybe your daughter as well, I find that they're very, very much aware of what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have internet. I didn't have internet growing up, right? They have access to all the possible information that exists, true or not true. And they have so much more filtering to do. We just received my people, my time. We just received what was in our vicinity, or the newspapers and the news, but it wasn't all of the I'm going to say
we were never bombarded with.
No, we had a tenth of
information overload. Right.
Yes. Yeah, which is why they're dealing with anxiety, which is why they're shutting down. A lot of them are shutting down. A lot of them are turning to like meds to cope. And or they're learning to focus their attention on a single subject and dive deep and stay concentrated and feel like they're doing something to, eventually to use that knowledge to help the world. So, like my daughter studied political science for the reason that she wants to be able to make some changes in the world. Now, whether she will actually succeed with that is another story, but the drive is there. And if they can get past the feeling of not caring, because apathy is a really big thing across this generation right now, where it's so overwhelming, they can't even care about anything. It's too hard. There's too much to care about, like mistreated animals, child abuse, suffering people, starving people.
Files. Yes, there's
oh my gosh, right? Yeah. So, but if they can overcome that and move towards actually aligning with something that matters to them deeply and apply themselves, then these are the kids that we're going to be depending on as we get older to balance things out. So I'm rooting for them. I'm praying for them. I'm wishing that they all find their paths, that they all find their way, and that they all make it through this difficult period of finding who they are, because, the first 20 years of life are
The
they're so
hardest.
hard. They're so hard. And knowing who you are, which is why yoga is so important, and meditation, of course, which is the ideal end goal to yoga, is to be able to stay in a meditative state for long enough to actually see yourself for who you truly are and be in
Right.
touch with the inner self and source. You could call it whatever you like. Those will find the balance, the inner balance to move forward in the world. So I think right now the biggest mission we have is to help people come back into a balanced state because we're just all over the place,
So
mentally,
truly
emotionally.
learning how to integrate these modalities into their life, sit still, or at least just start thinking about these things, elevate your vibration,
Sure,
be
sure.
conscious.
Yes. Different phases of life you can apply the same concepts to different ways to different phases of the life. When you're young, movement is going to be important because you're growing and you have a lot of energy. And so being active is important, but then also being conscious of your action is going to be, one of the things to focus on. But if kids and adults alike do not have enough downtime, enough quiet time, enough unstimulated time, that balance won't be achieved. Because you don't get it in sleep. When you're sleeping, you're dreaming about all the things that haven't been processed yet, that you've already been stimulated mentally by, right? So now you've got all this processing to do. But if there's this great book called The Diamond Cutter, and it's written by Geshe Michael Roach, a Tibetan Buddhist monk, American who studied for a long time in Tibet. And he wrote this book about his journey as a diamond cutter. He became a diamond cutter to be able to earn money in the world so that he could teach Buddhism. So he could have enough money to create a center called Diamond Mountain in Arizona. I think it's Arizona. And he says, every day we should have 1 hour of no stimulation. That hour would be best the one right before sleep. And then he says every week we should have 1 day of no contact with anyone or anything, just being. But, we lost our Sunday, right? And Sunday was still contact with people, but at least things were different on that day. It was you didn't do the same things every day that we do now. Nowadays, it's like everything is happening on every day of the week. And then he said also 2 weeks out of the year, just go rent a cabin in the woods with no Wi-Fi, no phone signal, nothing. Just go, be there. Now, of course, not all of this is possible, but if we can even take a small portion of that, even half an hour a day with no stimulation, no phone, no radio, no TV, no internet, nothing, and then half a day a week of no stimulation, our nervous systems would be a lot more balanced.
You would pay attention to the cues in your body.
Well, you would actually hear them. You'd actually go, oh, what's that going on in there? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Why is that happening? Why do I have a pain here? Why is that tingling over there? I mean, we don't even know these things exist because we're always moving. We're always engaged with something. And I'm not saying moving a lot and being engaged is bad. It's just you can't
constantly move 24/7
without breaking down.
Yeah, because that also brings us into living in a fight or flight mode, because there's constantly that stimulation of someone cuts you off, someone pisses you off, someone said something, and it's constant, stimulation, constant nervous system overload.
And then, of course, if we don't have it, then we're looking for caffeine or sugar to make it happen. We're addicted to this adrenaline state. And the problem with that is is our nervous systems will wear down and break down much more quickly. And so one reason why I'm guessing we have so much mental illness and nervous disorders, way more than we ever did. Alzheimer's, dementia, um, just anxiety, even in general.
Right.
But tics and where people develop all these physical neuroses, even it's the behavior changes as well when the nervous system is overlogged and unbalanced. So, I mean, if we could just take 15 minutes of quiet time and notice how that benefits us, we might expand it to half an hour. We might expand it to an hour a day if we could do it. That's it. You don't even have to get on a yoga mat, although that would be really good.
Yeah. So that brings me to a question. You do beautiful retreats in Bahamas. Would you share that with us?
Sure. I lead trainings and retreats in various locations, but the Shivananda Yoga Ashram in the Bahamas has been one of my places that I've been going to for the last 19 years. First of all, it's spectacular. It's gorgeous. The beach is phenomenal. I think I've read that it's one of the 10 best beaches in the world, and it truly is, in my opinion. I haven't seen all of them, but really, it's a great beach. But what we have there is almost 60 years of a community praying and cleansing and bringing peace to the people that arrive there on a regular basis. So we have meditation every day, twice a day. We have chanting to help cleanse the space and your body and your mind. We have yoga classes twice a day. We have daytime workshops. But the things that I offer there are like restorative yoga retreat. So we do 6 days, 3 hours a day of deep restorative yoga. So they have this experience of accumulated nervous system restoration, basically. And so over those 6 days, they become totally different. If you look at the face of a person when they arrive and when they leave, it's soft, it's open, it's relaxed, there's less lines on the face, it's more easy for them to smile. They just shed. So much gets shed in an experience like that. I also do the therapeutic yoga there as well, and also training. So if people want to learn how to teach these things, if they're teachers, then they can carry this on as an extended, like a continuing education. And if they're not, they at least learn how to practice it themselves. And then also at Grace's in Nicaragua, Glow Retreat, we're offering this year a 3-week, 200-hour yoga teacher training with a therapeutic approach starting September 22nd this year. It's a beautiful environment. It's so pure. The food is incredibly healthy and cleansing and detoxing, and I always leave looking and feeling better every time I go there. And this gives people an opportunity to actually get certified as a yoga teacher with a therapeutic approach while being in an environment that's healing and cleansing and detoxing. And so there's that. And then in December, I'll be doing a retreat in Fiji as well. And that one I've not been to yet, so I can't speak too much about it, except for I know it's a beautiful location and it's a lot more free and open, where there's more opportunity to just spend time on your own, do your own thing. You can take 1 or 2 classes a day of yoga. And all that information will be on my website, which is, can I say?
Yes, 100%.
It's yoga with 3 A's and an H, so yogaAAH.com. And so any questions you might have, you can message me through there, but all my events are listed there. And we have the next ones coming up, I believe The very next thing coming up is the Nicaragua yoga teacher training. And you don't even have to do the whole 200 hours training if you wanted to just have the experience. You can come for the retreat portion of it instead of the full training. So that option is there as well. Yeah.
I just want to invite people to this because I've been to Nicaragua at the Glow Cafe
Yeah.
place, and absolutely beautiful. It's rejuvenating, but also we were talking about before we got into what you do is if people really want to disconnect and find that peace and detox their body from whatever and really start to connecting the dots of what's going on in their life and really transform themselves, I think this is a great start.
Yes.
So I really appreciate you sharing that because it's important. I think this is the mission where you and I are here today to share that with people and really open the doors where people are, whoever is looking, can find this kind of healing. You know, this is where it has to.
Yeah, it's life transforming, literally, not just physically, but you're shedding layers of stress and tension, and you're getting time to focus on yourself, which is so rare. And when you do that, you can actually feel nurtured and cared for, and you can grow self-love, which then turns you into a completely different person. It gives you the firsthand knowledge of what it is to love when you learn to love yourself. And all really love is attention, positive attention, right? So if you're giving yourself positive attention, then you are healing a lot of those feelings of lack, loneliness, insecurities, all of the areas in the body and also in your emotions as well. Yeah. So anyways, if there's any further questioning, feel free to ask anyone who's interested. And
I'll definitely post all the information in the bottom of the notes, and if anybody's interested to reach out to you and to be interested in any of the retreats, and we definitely
excellent. Well, thank you so much.
But Nora, one more question, and the question would be, what wisdom do you find yourself returning to again and again and again?
I would have to say it's the understanding that I'm a work in progress. I'm growing and learning at every turn, and I'm always changing because I'm learning. And if I feel stuck, I recognize that this too will shift and change because this is a part of the process of the next stage of growth, or there's something that needs to be examined. So I think the right words are, I'm ever evolving.
It's a never-ending journey.
It's a never-ending journey, exactly. Yeah.
What do you wish people understood about healing?
Well, first of all, that it's possible. We can heal. We do heal. It's innate. Healing is innate. It is something we're born with the ability to do. But we often get in the way of it, or we slow it down with some of our habits and behaviors. And sometimes lack of understanding of how healing works can sometimes slow things down too. But the more you focus on what needs to be healed, the faster it will heal.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Yes. That yoga is not just a physical practice. Yoga means to unite, or union of the mind, body, and soul. So when we talk about yoga, it's not always about the physical practices that you see people doing, warrior and tree and headstand. What we're talking about is this all-encompassing practice of bringing your mind to focus on deeper aspects of yourself for alignment to become whole. So it includes breathing, it includes meditation, it includes right eating, it includes right thinking, positive thinking, and it includes some exercise as well. And if we're doing all of these things, if we're sleeping well, getting our nutrition, getting some exercise, spending time introspective, and then also believing that we're going to heal or grow or learn, then we're doing yoga. So we just need to remember that it's not what North America has made yoga out to be. It's a bigger picture than that. And you may already be doing it and not knowing it at all.
Nora, thank you so much for your wisdom and sharing your insightful thoughts and information. Really appreciate that. So
Thank you so much, Aleksandra. It was a real pleasure. I'm so glad to be able to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.